Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the NORA Oil Tech Talk February edition with my co-host, Alan Mercurio. Hey, Alan.
Good evening.
How are you? And our special guest this evening is Steve Martino from Martino Fuel.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome
Bob.
aboard.
Hi, Alan. Oh, thanks for having me.
So it's a little something different. Usually we have like an instructor from a rep or from a manufacturer or an instructor or something like that. And Steve is a service tech, runs a small company outside Philadelphia, Martino Fuel. Done some great stuff. I've known him for a couple of years. I spoke to him years ago about an app and some app development he's done, which we wanted to talk about tonight. Some really interesting stuff. And Steve just always has a good viewpoint on Facebook. I think it'd be a valuable thing to get to talk to a tech, somebody who's out in the field, hands-on, in the field every day, doing what they do. Anyway, the apps, the reason I initially got to know you was through the apps. I think you'd asked me some questions about using a heat loss calculator app.
Mm-hmm.
Heat loss is a major issue. People have a tremendous tendency to oversize.
We've seen it for years. Anybody who's been in the business a long time, especially like my father started in the 70s, all that old stuff is way oversized. And then, of course, people start improving their homes and they insulate and they put in new windows and they're just ridiculous. I mean, on the downside, there's really nothing in oil that's small enough anyway. I mean, furnaces went down to about 60,000 BTUs, maybe a little less, and boilers 70, 80. So
nobody uses those anyway.
Right.
They all think they're too small.
I mean, there's an area in the town I grew up in. They were post World War I row homes, like 2 and 3 bedroom. And when I did first heat losses on them, they were like 9,000 BTUs, and they got like 4 section boilers in them and 125,000 BTU furnaces. And just, I don't know. I think with oil, people don't take it as serious enough. You know, gas, you have more options. Heat pump, you have to be real critical. Air conditioning, very critical with sizing, but you know, or you get poor dehumidification. But with the oil, they just it works. I'm warm. You know, short cycling. You know,
the good part is it is very forgiving.
Right.
Because I mean, you go into a lot of houses that are 50,000 and there's 175,000 BTU boiler there, and nobody's got any complaints. But it's the cycling is a major issue.
I don't think they really even know. Like, I know I grew up with forced hot air, and my dad always kept it at like 75 degrees because he was always cold. And my wife grew up with forced hot air, and we had forced hot air in this house until we remodeled. And when I put the radiant in, I mean, it's just such a difference in comfort. You don't get those drafts. You don't get, when every time the fan shuts off, you don't feel cool, and then the fan comes on and blows hot air on you. So it's, and I think people are missing out on that with properly sized furnaces. They could have better comfort.
Oh, we have a question from Paul McGee. Sorry to interrupt. I'm retired now, but when I was a sales rep for Pito, a lot of townships started requiring a manual J for heating and cooling. They do here in a lot of localities, they do that. What I found, though, unfortunately, is a lot of guys have pre-built manual J's. They're not actually doing them. They'll have one for a Colonial, they'll have one for a Ranch, they'll have one for a Cape, and just, make the numbers be what they want to be and then trot it out.
Around here, we're known as the Wild West of everything, right? So we don't have a lot of inspector kind of stuff like that. If it's a new build or a remodel with blueprints and the permits, but as far as change outs, people aren't pulling permits. They're not pulling them for oil tanks. And quite frankly, every little town has their own fire marshal who doesn't really know much about the code. Like I bought those code books early and read through them. I make sure I do everything by code because from a legal standpoint, I don't want it to bite me one day. But township, I mean, I had a fire marshal decide that, they need a fire door on the mechanical room, and it really just sealed off all the combustion air, and that house stood it up. And it's like, you made them put a fire door on where they had a louvered door because you want a fire rated door on a mechanical room in an apartment. You did the wrong thing. You should have, accounted for combustion air. So that guy has kind of gotten long fired. He did it about 3 or 4 times in like one season. So it's hard. Like, so those manual J's, like you said, they could be fudged, and but really you should do the performance testing.
And it's interesting you mentioned the liability. I mean, that's one reason to follow code. The other reason, you're in the house a lot, and the people, the wife, you see the kids playing. A lot of times in Long Island, there's a lot of finished basements. The kids are down there playing. The boiler room's right there. I can see and hear them while I'm working on the boiler. That's a lot of responsibility. You have to sleep at night. And
Sure.
people's families are living in these homes, and it's not just liability is a big part of it, but I need to be able to go to sleep when I go home at night, and
Yeah.
I need to know it's right and safe and correct.
Yeah.
I mean, you're 100% correct
The
on
one,
that.
and along those lines, like the one thing, like with combustion testing, we were talking about this earlier, just like, I'm sorry, but the wet kit is got to be retired. You can't get true combustion analysis with a wet kit. You're not looking at CO. Like when I do my combustion analysis, when I go out and fire that burner up, I put my personal CO monitor on, especially if there's a gas appliance in the house. If you stick your CO monitor on top of a gas water heater, that thing will hit 100 ppm in no time, especially on a windy day, just blowing out the draft hood. So like you said, you've got people next door or in the next room playing. That carbon monoxide starts spilling out. That's bad. And their detectors they have are, by the time it alarms them, it's been bad for a long time.
Nope, that's why you have to test. Bacharach has retired the wet kit for you.
Oh, good.
It's been discontinued.
You see on Facebook, people say I still use them. They're better than my analyzer. You don't have to spend $300 to get it checked every year. You use it 500-600 times a year easily.
Yeah.
And it's built. It should be built into the job. If you're not making enough money to get your analyzer checked every year, you gotta charge a little more.
Yeah.
But
you need to for when one's being calibrated or serviced.
Yeah.
I found
they're cheap enough today.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to mention other companies, but True Tech Tools. I don't know if you know them guys. They're a big online presence. They do a lot of stuff with MeasureQuick. But I literally get that analyzer back in like 3 days. And I do have a backup. I have an older one that I use also if I had to. But so yeah, I like tools, and I try to get the best tools that make my job the easiest.
Do you want to talk about the apps you've developed?
Yeah, let's take a look at them now. So
Yep.
these are actually I made two different kinds. These first two I show you, they're for iOS devices or a desktop computer. They're made on a FileMaker platform. They're actually database files, so you would have to download for free FileMaker Go on your iOS device, and then you can. Bob's going to put up a thing about my email. You can send me an email, and I will send you the file, or I'll give you a link to the file so you can download it and use it. And then the other one are spreadsheets. You can just use them on any computer. But this first one, this was inspired by Bob. He wrote an article for Indoor Comfort Magazine, I think you said it was. What was it entitled? Do you need
a heat loss on every job?
Right, on every job, right. So, and it was just basically about, let's go with degree days and gallons used and usage, and let's see if we can come up. And he came up with a formula to predict your heat loss. So this is actually my house, and I was telling him when I remodeled years ago, I had the supply house did a manual J, did full design work on RightSoft, and they came up with about 55 or 56,000 BTUs, and when I do it on my little app, it came out to 52. It's great for oil because oil is, you're only using oil basically for heating, so that tends to be the best. For gas, you would have to back out all your other uses and just get the gallons or the BTUs used or consumed for gas. But it works out great. I mean, you put in your percentage of your efficiency and your gallons and the degree days for the time period that you're working and your design temperature, and it spits out a pretty good number. And
What size house is this? What size house is the one you're showing on the screen?
This is my house. I think this is like a little over 3,000 square feet.
Yeah, that's really the eye opener for a lot of people. I mean, these preconceived notions of what it should be. I mean, you need 120,000, you need 150,000. The reality is you need a much smaller number than anybody thinks.
Now, these houses are all the same development. Now, down the street, about a block and a half away, where it switches from gas, where people started using oil again, there's a house that smaller than mine without the addition. That guy had like a 3-section Wall McLean in there, and that was way too big, and that short cycles all the time. And this will also, if you were going to put in a gas appliance for somebody, this would be a great way to know what size you need right here, without doing the full manual J. You probably should if you're not good at it, until you get the hang of it. Or you can use it, if you're using it for gas, you can use it as maybe like a not to exceed size if you have a couple other appliances using gas. So, but that was Bob's idea. And like I put it initially on a spreadsheet. There is a spreadsheet for it. And
So if people want to get this, they just drop you an email and you'll send them a Dropbox.
drop me an
link.
email. Yeah, the spreadsheets I can just email you to you directly. These, unfortunately, are so big I can't email them. I might. Well, this one I could. The heat loss calculator I can email because it's not big. But the HVAC Calcs has hundreds of calculations on there, and it just eats up a lot of space, and it can't be emailed. No matter how I can't zip it. I can't. With any way I tried to email it, it won't work. It's too big. So,
Thanks.
What if just, I don't want to get too far away from our subject here, but, and not to be plugging oil tech talk, but everybody knows on the website, there's an area, it's called, the toolbox. And Steve, I thank you. You've been a contributor to that toolbox. I'm wondering if that's something, because there's more than enough space on that server.
Sure.
If that's something we could consider putting in the toolbox.
I could.
And people could go to the toolbox and download it from the toolbox.
I would have to do just two things. I would want to make up a full set of instructions.
Yeah.
Because they'll be on their own. And the other thing is I would probably have to is that I think when you put that in, was that on Facebook or on your own website?
No, on oiltechtalk.com.
Okay.
If you go to the toolbox.
Yeah, I think I would make sure there was
some of your other spreadsheets that you've made and graciously shared with
Sure,
me.
we could. That's no problem at all. I think I would have to put a version number on there because if we updated it, I would want people to know that there was a newer version available.
100%.
And that's the main reason why I want them to email me for the link because I haven't checked all these a lot. So if there's a mistake and I fix it and I don't want somebody using the wrong formulas or calculations. So I can at least email them and let them know. And then maybe one day I'll team up with an app builder and they can make them actual apps. And then I can, then it'd be real easy.
Yep.
Which way you want to go?
Before we go, I'm sorry, I skipped this. Paul had a question earlier. I didn't see it in the chat. So really quick, again from Paul, thanks for the question. 80% of my sales, the furnace was in a space that did not pass the combustion air requirements.
So I made a combustion air calculator.
Steve, you have one?
So
there we go.
So basically, you're going to put your
ask and you shall receive.
Your cubic feet in there.
Okay.
And it'll tell you the maximum BTUs
Dimensions?
You can use. Yep. The maximum BTUs you can fire. Then you're going to enter your actual BTU load from all your appliances. It'll tell you if it's a confined space or not. And then you can say is all additional air coming from the inside of the building or the outside of the building. And then it'll tell you how many the two permanent openings of 10.5 square inches in this case. If the air was coming from the outside, I think you're safer. Now, from the outside, it would tell you how big of a duct you need, how many square inches for a vertical duct and for a horizontal duct. So, the main reason why I made the main reason why I made this calculator, and we can get, if you want to get into troubleshooting or it's really for performance. I'm always interested in seeing how things are performing. And these calculations I didn't invent any of this stuff. This is all stuff you can find on the internet. I just put it all in one place because everybody has their own apps. And if you're in the basement, you can't get a signal, or those apps, if you get a weak signal, you really hog a lot of battery life. So I just wanted to put them all in one space. The actual apps are probably even better, but these are all the calculations for, total sensible heat and for hydronics and circulator sizing and just all kinds of fun stuff. That was really
people can get all these on the Dropbox.
This is one file. This one right here is one file. I thought about breaking it into smaller files so I could send them out, but then you'd have to have 5 on or 6 or 7 of them on your phone instead of just starting off with one. So
it just opens up the menu and this is what you say. You can pick.
This is your home screen, and you might not get you won't get a couple things, but. Go ahead,
sure. You want to show us a couple?
Yeah, what do you want to look at? Let's do oil stuff.
Well, we're talking about oil here. It's NORA, so oil.
So tank volumes. Here's tank volumes. This is every kind of tank. Here's a basic oil tank at 275. And if you wanted to, you could just put in, if you had to stick the tank to see how much was in there. This works better for big commercial jobs. You put in your fill amount, it'll tell you how much till full, how much till you can pick your percentage, how far you want it full. I have every kind of tank I could think of. On generators, if you have a rectangle and you measure up the rectangle, it'll tell you, what you got. The Roth tanks were the only problem. When I contacted Roth, they don't have a way to calculate their volume because you know how the tank's got all these little ins and outs. And
Oh
things.
yeah, it flexes.
So they
right?
made a chart. So I just put the chart on there because you know, if you didn't have the chart on you. Oh, there it goes. So yeah, so that's for sizing tanks and tank volumes. So with this one, this is just simple, some nozzle substitutions. If you had a 1.25 nozzle, 100 PSI, and that's your flow rate of 125, you can, this will be all the nozzles you can put in its place and the
That's
associated
nice.
pump pressure.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you can go a little step farther. You can go down here and put the different types of, I only got BTU content for B20 and B100. It's kind of, there's not hard and fast rules for that. And this will tell you your true output based on that 138,000, 173,000 gross, you're getting 138,000 out.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah, I've used this a lot. You can even go the other way. Say you had to downsize a nozzle because you just couldn't, you don't have the right nozzle. But of course, when we get down to the smaller nozzles, there's really, you don't have a lot of choices here. And you're not putting in a 0.40 and cranking it up to 225. Because I don't even think that new Beckett clean cut pump is supposed to go that high, right?
They're rated for 200.
But they tell you 150, right?
They're rated for 200, but they will go to 220. They'll go 10% beyond that.
I thought they told you in the instruction I read like 150 kind of a max.
Yeah, the rating, if you read the label on the pump, it's 200.
Okay.
But there's little room beyond that. The problem is the nozzle size. Nobody wants to use, even
Right.
0.50s can be touch and go in some applications, right?
Yeah, when I looked up for all these pump pressures, especially for switching at the bar, and I found out like overseas they still use PSI on the for the nozzle sizing, but they use the bar for the pressure. But they have very small nozzles, and they of course have condensing oil, and they have things that fire at 0.25 and 0.15. We just are never. I don't think we're ever going to get that here.
No, unfortunately.
Unless bioheat can dominate the market. The oil line calculator, this one I don't really like. I did it. It works well, but I actually called Suntech Engineer. We went over the calculations, and they're all right, but they just don't make sense. Sometimes it says you could have like 1,000 feet of oil line. I was like, this doesn't make sense. So for me, I would just recommend using the manufacturer's data. I mean, the new clean cut pumps tell you maximum, 6 inches of vacuum, and you should have vacuum and pressure gauges when you're doing stuff with pumps. I made this little calculator. This came up because you guys up in the Boston, Massachusetts area with your boiler, what do we call them, expansion loops at the tank, and you have expansion loop at the burner, and I hate them. But they say you have the code says you only have to allow for expansion. It doesn't say you have to put these goofy loops in, because if you ever been to a refinery, they got miles of pipe. They don't have one loop. They have little ins and outs, and they make other ways to take up expansion. But if you put in your length of your tubing and the temperature change you anticipate, it'll tell you how much it's going to expand or contract. And 30 feet at 30 degrees is only 1/8 of an inch. If you have a tiger loop on there with flex lines, you're not going to have any expansion problems. And you guys have seen older stuff with compression fittings with no expansion loops. They never leaked. But so
the good part is it's really easy to open up a pump when it has the loop on it. It gives you plenty of play to pull the cover apart. If they're feeding into the, using the inlet port on the cover. I have to say that's the nice part. Right.
Yeah, I do agree with you on that. But like I said, most people are going with tiger loops and flex lines, right?
A lot of that now.
Yep.
Want to show Josh the circulator sizing one?
So basically, if you measured up your whole system on the right side here, all your pipe, how much pipe you have, all your elbows, right, every fitting, right, and every pipe size, you put in your BTUs. You have to enter all this data, obviously, but all the way down at the bottom, it's going to tell you 6 gallon per minute and 12.62 feet ahead.
It's going to tell you your pump's too big.
Right. Well, I show on that other thing. I started using these ultrasonic flow detectors, playing around with them to get flow rate, and everything I put it on is just over pumped. In residential, everything's over pumped.
That's for sure.
So this one is I think this works pretty well. I played around with it. This is one way to get the head. The other way to get the head the feet ahead, you can use the ultrasonic flow device to get the flow. But John Siegenthaler, he came up with a device. You just take the circulator out and pop his device in there, and you can plot your circulator heads to pick the best one. But he says, well, this is pretty good. You can kind of visualize the piping in the house to measure it up for the most part. So I have a bunch of these. I have to move this around because the streamline thing is blocking it. But yeah, so a lot of this is just plain old sample data. You can edit and create all these pipes if you had to, if you wanted to add more fittings. You can print this off or send it as a PDF if you were keeping track of this or putting it in a database. And you could just do that for each circuit. And that kind of goes along with the system volume. I also made a system volume one where you put in all your pipe, and it'll tell you how much the water content. If you're using glycol, certain percentages, how much glycol you need, and versus the water, and it'll size your expansion tank and tell you the pressure is, and you can add in for buffer tanks and indirects. So it's just fun stuff I enjoy doing, but I do like to check performances when there's a problem.
I like it.
Yeah.
I don't mean to. I haven't been paying attention to the questions. We've had some.
Oh yeah.
Up.
Let them go. Let them
Sure.
rip.
Got one from Alan Warnham. Back to combustion air. We had an after drip issue on a warm air furnace today. There was a 112,000 BTU furnace with 46,000 BTUs of makeup air. I'm not
Sucking it back.
surprised. Yep. It's
Usually in that case, doesn't the coupling just melt? You know,
yeah,
if
it
it's
looks like
pulling
a
it back.
Carvel ice cream cone.
Yeah.
A couple of them here. Got another one from Paul again. They were usually in a small laundry room and they had fire doors, so we had to provide external combustion air. Outside is the best if you can possibly do it, but
Right.
it's incredibly common. And I think it's totally overlooked. NFPA 31 actually requires a worst case combustion test on every new installation,
Right.
which I don't know anybody who actually does that, but it is required by code, and hopefully it doesn't bite somebody in the butt someday.
And
I
you
don't
get
know,
out
this
your
one's really-
manometer, and you could do a little depressurization testing too.
Yep.
With the manometer, and people don't do that. But yeah, that question from Paul. That's the same situation I had with what I was telling you about, where the guy sooted up a furnace because he the inspector made him switch to a sealed fire rated door and didn't account for combustion air. So
Got another question. I don't know if it's really germane to any of these, but we'll take it anyway. Vincent Schnittert, why is B20 making the yellow burner turn on and off? It's probably
Okay.
not. Generally, when
I was
I
gonna
see
say,
that,
why do you think it's the
usually
fuel?
Yeah, it's usually over-aired, and you can test it really quick when you start the burner. Just put your hand over the air shutter for a split second. If it keeps
Right,
running,
that is the
a little,
that is the-
not
the quick-
completely over the air shutter, just a tiny
Right.
little bit,
Yeah.
and that's a good test. It could also be from cold fuel, cold air, a cold chimney. There's a lot of different variables. If you want to drop me an email or a message, Vince would be happy to jump into that more with you, but it's probably not the B20. It's a common problem with every burner. It's been going on for years, but generally it's over-aired. But it could be something else. If you want to drop an email or message, we can dig into it.
and pull a little
Another
sample of
question
that
from
oil.
Josh.
I was gonna say, pull a little sample of that oil to see if it looks funky. It might see
There
a
you
little
go,
water
too.
in it.
Be happy to test that sampling. Actually, NORA does fuel sample testing. If anybody has an issue where they think it is the fuel, send it in. There's no charge, and we can give you a complete lab rundown on the fuel, what's going on with it. So we got another question from John Gilbert, a little jump back too. My house runs with a 0.50 70W with 106 PSI, and I usually have to replace it twice a winter. I have dual filtering. It happens. Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah. I mean, most 0.50s will run reliably for a year, but I've heard the same thing. I have a 0.60 at 160 in my house, and I haven't. Steve and I were talking this before about the shoemaker's kids. I haven't changed the nozzle in 4 or 5 years.
Yeah,
So,
and then when you
and
will,
also with dual filtration, 2 spin-ons.
yeah,
Initially, I had a cartridge type and a spin-on after it, and now it's 2 spin-ons.
I do
Thanks
have
for the question,
cartridge. I do have cartridge and spin-on, but I think I'm going to switch it to the 2 spin-ons because I think Alan talked about what happens to that cartridge filter with bio. Luckily, we don't have a lot of bio yet in our area.
Yeah, the
It's not
cartridge
mandated.
filters-
But if you want to talk about bio a
Another
little bit, oh, go ahead.
Sure. If whatever you want to talk about. Another quick question from Josh. I struggle. I'm assuming this is about circulator. It's
Well,
actually
Josh,
kind of hard. It's
yeah.
hard to size pumps residentially because generally the smallest is too big.
Right. I mean, this
Commercially, it's a whole
007 is a
nother ballgame.
standard, right? Maybe try like one of the more advanced ones. We can dial in either delta T or pressure, or get a 3-speed and stick it on low speed and see how you do. And if that don't work, try medium. That's trial and
0018E.
terror. But, yeah.
0018E.
Or a big old house that had a B and G,
Yeah.
that energy sucker. So
Very flat curve on those pumps, though.
yeah,
So,
but usually big giant
pump
pipes.
size is a great question. I think a lot of it's overlooked. I mean, everybody assumes that the 20-degree delta T is in fact the fact, but if you
Right.
just go out and stick a, if you were talking about measuring and quantifying stuff,
Right.
take a couple on a few jobs you go to. Even last week when it was single digits, rarely, if ever, you're going to get that kind of delta. It's over pumped. You're just moving the water too fast.
At some point, it's going to equal out.
Yep.
And you're grabbing both sides. You're grabbing the supply and the return. They're the same temperature. And the house is going to just take its time getting warmer. You can also test that. I didn't put that calculator in here, but you can also test that by checking delta T and room temperature, and that also tells you how much heat you're transferring. Or you have a lady with 5 cats, and like not a lady, a person with 5 cats. Men can have cats too, and all their fin tubes are clogged with hair, and it's like, yeah, you're not getting transferred any heat. So, yeah, Josh says B5. Yeah, Pennsylvania really hasn't forced bio yet. I use it, but I haven't gone past B5, mostly B2. But I know, Bob, you like, if we can get into bio, like we see a lot of complaints about bio online, right? Everybody hates it, but it is the future, and it's the only way this petroleum product is going to, if you're in oil heat, you're only going to be in oil heat with bio eventually. It's just going to be a fact of life. But you've guys been publishing information about handling and storage and how to adjust the burners. And, so when someone comes online and says, we switched to B20 and everything's plugged up, the fuel stinks, the tanks are leaking. I'm like, yeah, you put it in a 40-year-old tank. You should have, you got to prepare for that. You got to think ahead and tell people what's going to happen. Like, maybe we should replace this tank too. Let's do what's best for the customer. But leaking tanks are not what's best. And then they probably switch to gas after that. Right? They say, I had oil. Like, everybody that has this old busted up equipment, like, they hate oil. Oil's stinky. It's soot and the oil tank, and I smell oil in the house. Well, that's not the way it has to be. It's not like that in Europe. It's not like that with modern fuel. And I think in Canada, I think they make you change your tank in 20 years or your homeowners won't cover the tank.
I think it's 10.
Oh, 10? Yeah. So maybe they don't charge
it's
as much.
outside. It's 10. I think it's 10 outside and 20 inside.
Okay.
Yeah, but the vast majority of the tanks that you see leaking are, you're being generous saying 40. I mean, 50, 60, 70.
Right. I mean, if you see that, you could tell by looking at the end, right? The way that seam is, like, well, that's an old one. And if the outlet's on the side, it's really old.
Side outlet's another huge one, yeah. But being, proactive with that rather than the time to do it is before it's leaking.
Right.
You got to inspect the tanks on an annual basis, outside tanks in particular, that the pitch is correct, that you check for water. If there's any water in it, you drain it out. Obviously, this winter's put everything to the test.
I really just don't like outside tanks.
In a perfect world, there wouldn't be any.
Right.
But
it's necessary evil. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a perfect world.
I do treat them. I treat them all. I get additive, and every outside tank gets treated. And when I do a PM, if that filter's showing moisture in, every inside tank gets treated too, until it clears up, if it actually works.
That's the smart thing. I mean, the last month or so, I've been getting a lot of questions about additive, and you can't put it into a gel. It's not going to do anything on a gel tank.
Right.
It needs to be, it's preventative. It's not after the fact. They do make some meltdown stuff for diesel fuel you can use on gel tanks, but the general run-of-the-mill additives, you need to be adding it all year. You should be doing it constantly. Sure. If you're not going to treat every gallon, then if you're just going to do outside tanks, the driver has to put the additive in first and then deliver on top of it, so it's fully dispersed.
Yeah, it's a hard sell to tell people, hey, we just had a rough winter, you spent a lot of money, but we should top your tank off in your outside tank. They're like, the price might come down.
And a few more bucks for the additive.
Right.
But ask anybody who had a gel tank last week. and see how they
Yeah.
felt about it. At that time, they would have been very happy to pay anything to solve that problem.
Yeah. Now, in the 3 places I load, they you can get the additive put right in when you load. So you could do, and it's only like, it's like 3 cents a gallon, between 1 and 3 cents a gallon, depending on which supplier you use. That's pretty cheap insurance. I mean, why not? If you know your driver's picking up a load and hitting a bunch of outside tanks, even if he has a couple compartments, say, hey, put one, make one compartment, with the additive, make it winter blended, or just, I mean, margins have been up this year for everybody, even the COD
Yeah,
guys.
it makes sense. You have to plan for it. We finally got a real winter. We've had 15.
Yeah. So, and like I said, you guys have published enough information. There's so much information around you can get from YouTube and from NORA's website in itself. And even the Facebook pages have a lot of Alan's page, and they have a lot of great information, and people are more than happy to find it for you and put it up for you and show it to you. And I think even in Alan's page, there's, like you said, that place for files, and it's right there. Go read it. You goof around on Facebook and on all your social medias, spend some time and learn something. I like learning.
Yeah. Here's a good
learned a
comment
lot
from
from-
Alan. Didn't mean to interrupt. This is a really good comment
No,
from Alan.
go ahead. You want to read it, Alan?
Yeah, so Alan Warman, thanks, brother, for sharing this, and I agree with you. He says, if we set the burners up for B100, no matter the actual amount, they will run fine. If set up for number 2 and then add more bio, then issues would arise.
I don't understand. Is he saying that it's set up perfectly and then the next load comes in and everything goes sideways? Is that what he's saying?
Yeah. What we found in the field is, setup is not good at all. So you go to jobs and you stick the analyzer in it, and it's they're at 9.8 CO2, or conversely at 13.8.
Yeah.
This is before making the transition to a different fuel. You need to be riding down the middle of the road and not with your on the shoulder or over the double yellow line.
Right.
So biodiesel does have an oxygen component to it that heating oil and renewable diesel don't. So it's going to affect combustion numbers slightly. At B10 or B20, it's really a minor effect, but Alan's right, at B100, it could be
Is there a lot-
percent.
Is there a lot of people using B100? Is there a lot of people using B100 exclusively?
There's more than you would think. Yes. So we've had some extensive field tests going on, but there's a bunch of people, doing it on their own.
Now, I wonder if
There's
when that
quite a
guy
few,
gets
but
that
you want
next...
to be set up.
I'm sorry, I keep interrupting. It's a little bit of a delay. I was going to say, when that guy gets that
No, go
second
ahead.
load, is it stirring up something that was in the tank that, like, maybe some moisture came out of solution there or settled to the bottom, and now he mixed it up, and now it's getting drawn into the burner and causing that problem? It sounds like a hard problem to nail
It's generally
down.
the effect of the oxygen.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's generally the effect of the oxygen in the fuel that, so if you go from number 2 oil to B100, you're going to drop the
Right.
CO2, from about 0.5% to as much as 1%,
Right.
which is fine, but not if you're at 13, not if you're at, 9.8 to begin with.
Right.
And conversely, if you're up at 13.8 on B100 and, they quit, they go somewhere else, they get, they run out of fuel and get B5 in there, you're going to have a plug boiler pretty quick. So Alan's correct. You want to be set up in the middle of the road. You want to be, if you're set up correctly, you have enough safety cushion on either side. At B20 or B50 is not going to be a problem. But if you're at, if you're incredibly over aired or, very lean on the other side, if you're at 13.5, you could have a problem. So you want to move on to the apps. Steve has, not only does he develop apps, he's also developed a plower bleeding tank.
There it is. There's one.
The
of
new
them.
version. So you want to give a quick explanation?
It's just real simple. If you ever, for people who read the instructions, when you bleed a pump, it tells you to put a tube on it, immerse it in oil, right? It's got to be immersed. And then what I'll do with this control would be to jump out FF. Of course, they can bleed it. I turn it on until I get fuel flowing, and then I will turn off the valve from the tank, and just really draw a high vacuum for a couple seconds and open up and cut it loose, and it does a great job of bleeding. I do that for gravity jobs and especially overhead jobs. And once you open it back up, you can just keep watching that through that tube until all the air stops. So you stop seeing air and then close it and let it rip. Now, Riello, of course, you're going to have to do flashlight trick, and then you'll probably have to reset it You might have to reset it because the igniter dropped out. But you can close it and then reset it, and then you're right back in business. Unless you're a person who does Rielos with Tiger Loops exclusively.
What led you to this idea?
I think just the fact that it said you had to have it immersed, have a can. I have the tube in the can, and now you need like 3 hands for that. And if you have to walk back to the tank to turn the valve off, it's going to fill up and it could tip over, or the hose could come out the other end. So this just works pretty easily. When I go in for like a PM, I'll put that. I bring like an oil bucket, and then I cut out another bucket to stick inside here like a strainer. They make that kit, but everything I do, I like to make myself because I'm kind of cheap. But so I'll put that in that bucket and with the nozzle filter strainer, and I do all that first, and I'll bleed it, and then I can take all that and I'll take the unit apart. I could take all that oil stuff back out to my truck and dispose of all that, and come back in with the vacuum and vacuum it, and then and then we'll fire it up and do the combustion test. But yeah, that seems to be the best, and I really works great on overhead lines. I've done overhead lines with no Tiger Loops, and I've never gone back for air in the line, because once you bleed it while it's running through there, if you keep seeing air, you have a vacuum leak, so you have to go find the leak. But I think everybody's just putting Tiger Loops on and not caring
Yeah, the air
anymore.
builds up in the horizontal portion.
Right.
Have you ever seen it with a clear tube demonstration?
I've seen, there's a guy who does that. Yeah. I don't, but is it pulling a high vacuum to begin with, or is it pulling air in? It's probably best to overhead line Tiger Loop, right? That's what it's made for.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, the
but
horizontal portion, the fuel kind of runs along the inside, along the tubing, not filling the whole tubing, but when you power bleed it like that, when you pull the high vacuum and then let it go, kind of like letting the charge go into an AC system when you pull a vacuum on it.
right.
It's the same thing. It'll just displace all the air immediately.
But the only difference, most people really don't do this test anymore, but the only difference when you go with 2-pipe or a Tiger Loop is now you have to switch it back to 1-pipe if you want to do a vacuum test on the
Correct.
pump. And if people aren't doing this, they're definitely not doing that. They're just they're going to see a leak and go, the pump's bad, and they're going to change the pump and hope they got it right, But I don't know. I do like it. It's it's something I use every day. I just try to make
Just let it
things
go until it
easier.
fills up and dump it in the. You dump it in the slop bucket when it's full.
If it fills up, I'll stop and go drain. I usually dump it back in the tank. I might take a walk and put it back in the tank, or if I had to, I would dump in the bucket, because the slop bucket gets dumped into a different tank for waste oil. And at this point, that oil is pretty clean, so I give it back to the customer. All these tools I just use to make troubleshooting easier. So right off the bat, you should have a personal CO detector on you all the time. I bring this thing on vacation. I found high CO on the back of a cruise ship on my balcony one time. It was just, I guess the way the wind was blowing, the stack was just dumping CO. So we went and got the engineer and had a nice talk with him. This is an older picture, but these are all the tools I bring in for oil service. It's a heavy bucket, but I'm old and the knees hurt, and I don't feel like making 5 trips out to my truck. Here's my push-pull pump with all the adapters on there for compression fittings and flare fittings.
Are you using quick disconnects?
Yeah, quick connects to blow it out, or to get some, if you have to pump some additive into a tank. Works pretty nice. And then that's a great flaring tool. I don't know if you guys ever used that or seen that.
I thought you were cheap.
No, I'm not cheap on tools. I'm cheap on things that I don't think are worth it. But that's a great flaring tool. I mean, we've probably all been in the basement on our knees, using our head for leverage, trying to get that flaring tool on a stubbed out oil line coming out of the concrete. And this, you just clip it on the oil line. It's got its own stop, and you clip it into that thing and pull the trigger, and poof, you got a flare. It works out great.
I've seen it as shows. I've never actually used one.
Yeah.
I have to look deeper into it.
Yeah, I only started seeing it probably the past year or so, and so every time I see somebody talk about it, I'm like, I wish I had one of them when I was in the field.
Yeah, I mean, I still have the other two, but I use this for oil tanks and for running some piping, just to get level, rather than trying to measure up down from the ceiling and then go, that's 1/4 inch per foot. Just throw the laser level on there and be done with it. These are all the
1/4 inch is the minimum. You can do more than that.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt. You can't get enough books.
So basically, if we want to talk about apps, so my first quote unquote app would be I would just buy books. And NORA's got great, right down here, NORA's got great manuals now. All those manuals that were redone. And I would just go through these books, and anything I could find, I would scan it, and I put it in. If you can see this, I had a little recipe book, and I would just put everything in there. I'd scan them, and I'd make my own little service book that I'd bring in. And I don't really use it anymore, but I keep the things I keep in my tool bag where my analyzer are is like all the ohms readings. I have this little card for, well, because I can't remember all the ohms readings for PSC motors and split phase motors, and all the ohms readings for old iron core transformers and oil valves. So I keep them in there because I just can't remember them. They were all in that book.
I forgot that yesterday.
Yeah. And
On
that's
the
all
solenoid coils.
that's all I roll with now. I got about 3 pieces of paper. I got the Carlin one for the Carlin igniter. I got the Riello one, and I got something about blower motors, a couple things about checking them. Everything else, once you kind of learn it and you can remember it, I would take them out of the book, so my book wouldn't be 200 pages. And I think that's a great little. Maybe NORA could get on that. Maybe they can make a companion to their manuals and have it.
We have started that little laminated,
like a little service book. That's
yeah.
That's a ridiculous pipe bender. There's no reason to get that. That's for fun. This nozzle resurfacing tool, they don't make it anymore. This was a great tool.
Yeah.
You guys have probably seen them.
Yep.
Yep.
I tried to talk to the Beckett guy at the Delavan thing at the trade show. He didn't even want to talk about it. I was like, you guys should make these. This is why I do that on every time I touch a new piece of equipment. I'm going to resurface that nozzle. It's just the face of it to make sure it's, because everybody tightens those nozzles down like they're like nobody's business. Here's all my pump gauges. I got the manifold. I got the standalone ones. I got 2 boiler gauges, one for street pressure and one for boiler pressure, and all the adapters. And we saw that.
Oh, there's your bleeder.
Yeah, there's the bleeder again. There's a pigtail for line voltage shorts, and here's a pro short tool for low voltage shorts. They make quick work of finding shorts. We can do a video one day of those. A boroscope, little cat like this one on the left is one I have. It was like $39. You have to use your phone with it. That's great for looking at coils and seeing if they're dirty, or they can get in places, or looking into the chamber on those old boilers where nobody takes the face off and it's got 8 inches of crud in there. You show it to the customer. This newer one here, this is like $250, but this one completely articulates, almost like probably do colonoscopies with them if you had to. There's a flow hood for measuring airflow on each branch instead of and on a giant return. There's also a hot wire anemometer, works good for measuring airflow, and there's a little gauge. Of course, I made a calculator for that too. There's the manometer, and one of the manometers I use. This one was recommended by, I'm going to break your heart when I tell you, I took an airflow class with Ralph Adams, and he recommended this manometer. It's a great one. It's very sensitive. It's a real good one. I think I did airflow class with him, a tank class, and maybe a venting class. These probes, I use these for air conditioning, these psychrometers.
Ralph
really
was great.
Yeah.
Nobody's better at airflow than Ralph.
Yeah, he really, and that was like one of the first, when people first started getting cell phones, they were very protective. He's like, here's my cell phone number. Any questions, you call me. And he was always willing to.
Just an all-around great guy, and nobody had the passion. I mean, he was fired up, high energy.
Right.
Like a ball of energy. It was actually 2 days ago. It was 6 years 2 days ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it goes real quick.
Yeah. So these field piece probes, if you do air conditioning and heat pumps, field piece, MeasureQuick has field piece has a good app also. And so does MeasureQuick's app, can use all different kinds of wireless probes, all the ones they have tested and put on their app. But this is great for air conditioning and troubleshooting and really getting the properties of air when you're doing air conditioning. That kit is pricey. That's probably $1,400 when it's all said and done. But that's great for air conditioning. That's way better than, I don't bring my manifold with me anymore. I don't even use it. That's a good induct thermometer. These I use these. I got these clamps. These are wireless also, but they have the displays on them, and these are great for hydronics with especially with checking.
There's your Delta T.
Yeah, your Delta T, or on a tankless coil on both sides of the mixing valve. Good way to diagnose a mixing valve. On a commercial job, I put one at the oil fired output of the oil-fired water heater and go down to the other end of the building and put it on the faucet, coming out of the faucet, to show them the temperature, to check temperature, because you're supposed to check temperature when you change that mixing valve. Make sure you're not scalding anybody. And anything I put, if that gets posted at True Tech Tools, you can use a code called Get Schooled and get 6% discount on everything. I think even Alan might have a discount code for that for the analyzer, right?
For the PPA, yeah.
This one isn't
PPA
the
test.
exact, it isn't the exact meter, but this is a really good meter. This is the only way to measure AC milliamps on Carlin igniters if for people who test them that way. This is the only meter that does it. And I got it over here. It's the yellow one from Carlin University. I got back maybe around
That was a
2000.
long time ago.
Yeah. Actually, George Lanthier taught that class when I took it.
I got one years ago, and of course I left it somewhere.
Yeah,
It's in some
actually-
basement.
It's one of the meters I use, but yeah, I still got it. Still works perfect.
Yeah.
And you can. I tried doing 10 wraps around a clamp meter, but it's just kooky. It doesn't work well. There's one of those flow meters. This is a really good tool. Also, I don't use it often. Called a resistance decade box, and you can dial any resistance in you want. So if you're using like controls where they have sensors, and your sensor goes, maybe your outside sensor goes bad last week when you have 2 feet of snow on the ground, you can hook this up and dial in any sensor you want. You can look at the chart to tell it its temperature, and it'll say you need 32 degrees. Put that on there, and that's what the control thinks it's getting, 32 degrees outside. I've used it I have a larger commercial account where when I go to do the tune-up, it's got an outdoor reset, and it's a 9-section boiler. And if I'm doing it in the fall, that thing runs for 4 minutes and shuts off. I mean, it's resetting to 140 degrees, or so I'll just put this on here and tell it's 32 degrees outside, and it gives me 15 minutes to set it up. Or you can actually use the check to control. If your control, you think your sensor's bad, dial in a certain temperature, 45 degrees and known ohms, and look on the control. If the control's reading 75 degrees, your control's bad. It's not working right. So I've used it a couple times. It comes in handy. It's fun to play with. Or you can just buy resistors. If you know the resistors and you have the chart for the temperature, you can plug a resistor on. You can jump out with a resistor and do that. I do have some of them. Which ones these are just the Takeo power steering thermostat resistors. Thermal imaging camera, they're pretty cheap. They come in handy a lot for finding. I actually used this on my house. I didn't realize the insulation fell down behind the door to the attic, and it was right by my return on my air conditioning, and I was wondering why the air conditioning wasn't holding up. It was literally sucking 110-degree air into the return of my air conditioning. So that's just all the fun tools I like to play with. And I think these just help make the job a little easier and quicker. You get to solve the problem faster, especially with airflow, voltage shorts, pump pressure gauge. I'm sorry to go fast. I don't want to mess anybody up.
Nope. It's always interesting to see what other people do. Decade boxes are extremely helpful test purposes. Utilize them on many various test
good.
applications. We actually have one in the NORA lab, and we do use it also, and it's been great, but I never thought about using it in the field to replace a bad outdoor sensor.
Yeah.
Right? If you have that decade box, you have every single outdoor sensor ever made.
Yeah, just like you said, you can dial in any resistance you want to get any temperature you want to show up to do your testing.
Yeah,
that's
got
really
one, love it, but I never thought of it as a field tool.
What if you're there at 9 o'clock at night and the sensor's bad? You can just hang that up next to the control with a coat hanger and say, "Hey, I'll be back in a day or two." And you have heat. Yeah, I think if I was a commercial guy, I would probably make a little kit up of resistors just so I'd have them all, for that specific purpose. And probably, but it's very rare. I've had very few problems with outdoor sensors, and I don't think I've replaced one in a long time. So they are pretty durable. But someone could hit them with a weed
Outdoor research, not
whacker.
as popular as it was.
Nah,
10 or
I have it on
15
my
years ago,
boiler.
I mean, I put in a ton of it. I got it too. And the sensor failed.
Well,
So
on my
they
outdoor
do go
research,
bad.
with those radiant zones, I really need a buffer tank would be my best solution. Because the outdoor reset, I mean, I think that thing's always asking for 140. I mean, I put 140 and it rarely asks for more than 140 degrees of the boiler. And maybe when it gets to design temperature, we'll go to 180 for the high temperature zones, but it's only going 120 on the low temperature zone. So it short cycles a lot. But yeah, that would be,
It's
that would
working like
be,
it's supposed to.
yeah, it's doing what it's supposed to. So,
So that's it. I think we'll call it an evening. Thank you very much for stopping in. Thank you, Steve. It was a
oh, thank you
pleasure
guys.
talking to you.